Since May 2022, Australia's Prime Minister has been Anthony Albanese, the leader of the Labor Party. In May 2025, we had a federal election where Labor won again. Labor did not win because they were popular, they won because the coalition was and still is seen as brain dead by the Australian people. Labor got 34%, the coalition got 31%, One Nation got 6%, the Greens got 12%. However, recent polling has shown us how much the political climate has and could change. Labour sits at around 30 to 34%, the coalition 26 to 29%, One Nation 15 to 18%. The Greens are at about 9 to 11%. As you can see, the coalition is collapsing and One Nation is surging, doubling their points in less than a year. That isn't normal for a minor party, and this challenges the current two-party system. The two-party system doesn't even exist. People think only Labour or Liberal can win, so I'll vote for one of them. But that isn't the case. They don't need to win. They work together indirectly or directly, it doesn't matter. The mainstream media always supports at least one of the major parties and sees minors like One Nation as irrelevant. Lately, it has been much harder for the mainstream media to avoid or downplay One Nation. Since Labour took power, around 1.3 million people have entered the country. Around 31.5% of Australia's population was born overseas. Australia was and still is in a housing crisis. Labour promises to build 1 million houses by 2029, but they're behind schedule and we're already massively behind. On top of that, Labour prioritises GDP growth while GDP per capita is falling. Think of it like this. In 1934, Nazi Germany began something called Mefo bills. For any person with some World War II knowledge or the Hoi 4 player, you will understand exactly what this is. But for the people who don't, here it is in simple terms. Imagine Germany is a kid who really wants a new bike, which is the military. But their mum, which is the public and the parliament, says, you already spent all of your allowance, no more money. So the kid does something sneaky. Instead of buying the bike directly, the kid writes an IOU on toilet paper that says, I promise I'll pay you back later. He gives the IOU to the bike shop owner and says, trust me, bro, it's basically money. The bike shop owner goes, all right, I'll trade this for real money at the bank. The bank accepts it because the kid's dad, which is the German government, secretly promised, if he doesn't pay, I will. It's a way of making it seem like the economy is strong and flourishing, when in reality, it's one bad event away from collapsing. Essential polling shows 45% of Australians disapprove of Anthony Albanese and 43% approve of him. 12% are unsure. Susan Lee's numbers are even worse, with 43% disapproving of her and 34% approving of her, with 23 unsure. The poll explains why the coalition is collapsing and their voters are migrating to One Nation. All the polls and sources that I use will be in the description. Barnaby Joyce's entry into One Nation was catastrophic to the two-party system. His entry into One Nation puts One Nation in the House of Representatives. This gives credibility to One Nation and more coverage. Barnaby seemingly will run for Senate next election, but either way, it's about 2 years in the House of Representatives. Demos Australia MRP model projects One Nation would win 12 seats in the House of Representatives if the federal election were held now. One of the key facts from that poll is that approximately 1 in 5 coalition voters from the 2025 federal election now intend to vote for One Nation. The cost of living crisis, well, there's a high chance if you're living in Australia, you're affected by it in some way. A poll that asked which of the following best describes how you feel about your current financial circumstances released recently. The answers were 51% struggling or in serious difficulty and 49% comfortable. That's not normal. For example, the same poll shows in June 2022, only about 1 month after Albanese was elected, 61% were comfortable, with 39% struggling or in serious difficulty. I encourage you to check this poll out. It will be in the description so you can have a full look. As for One Nation's rise, it's quite fascinating. Typically, One Nation polls around 5 to 7%, and they got 6% in the 2025 federal election. However, the recent polls are where it gets interesting. September 2025, One Nation polled at around 13%. In October, around 15%, and early December, around 17%. A Roy Morgan post released a few days before I wrote this script shows One Nation at about 15.5%. The Greens are the only modern party that can compare. Their typical polling is around 10 to 14%. In the 2025 federal election, the Greens got 12%. In September, they polled at around 11%. October 9%, November 11%, and early December 10%. This shows the Greens are maintaining their popularity, not growing or shrinking. So you, as a viewer, what is your opinion? Do you believe we are entering a new era of a multi-party government, or will we stay with the two-party system? Another poll that asks, do you expect the following to go up or down, or stay the same in the year ahead, shows 75% of people believe grocery prices will rise, with 13% believing they will go down, 72% believe energy prices will rise, with 14% believing it will go down, and 73% believing housing prices will rise, with 13% believing they will go down. The most interesting one is 54% of people believe wages will go down, while only 25% believe they will rise. Overall, people believe the following will rise in price in 2026: groceries, energy, housing, interest rates, unemployment. Overall, people believe the following will go down in price in 2026: wages. I'm not joking. Poll and description. Another poll from December 2025 that asked, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic that Australia will be able to address the following issues? For housing affordability, 58% were pessimistic, 19% were optimistic, and 23% were unsure. For cost of living, 60% pessimistic, 19% optimistic, 21% unsure. For immigration, 50% pessimistic, 22% optimistic, and 28% unsure. This shows the nation isn't very pleased with our incumbent government. However, the other polls we have looked at showed majority also doesn't like the coalition or Susan Lee as leader anymore. Since the election, Labour has somewhat maintained its base. The coalition has begun to collapse. One Nation has more than doubled its vote, and the Greens are maintaining their base. So where does this lead Australia? Honestly, I don't know. I'd say we could see One Nation as opposition as early as 2031. But in government, I don't see it happening anytime soon without forming a coalition. Overall, I see Labour winning the next federal election unless something major happens. Yeah, so as I'm recording this, there's a petition that has 120,000 signatures nearly to call for the resignation of Anthony Albanese as Prime Minister because of the Bondi Beach attacks, which did happen at the time of writing this script. But it's too uncertain to predict how this affects the political climate. But I think it is obvious how this has, and especially because Anthony Albanese didn't attend the first of the funerals. I'm not sure if he attended the funerals that were on today, as I'm recording this, which is the 18th of December, 2025. But as you can see, it's going up constantly. It reached about 100,000, maybe around 5:40 p.m. It's 9 p.m. It's gained nearly 20,000 since then. Um, it doesn't seem to show any signs of slowing down anytime soon. This will be in the description if you want to sign it.